Hello, good morning. It's just gone 6 a.m. on Friday the 12th of August. I'm setting out early to try and beat the heat on a short local road. Hopefully home before it gets too intensely hot. We're 2 days into a 4-day heat wave and boy is it hot. I'm heading out south from my hometown of Bath, just come through the 2 tunnels as you may have seen, and I'm heading out to visit 3 local thankful villages. Now if you don't know what thankful villages are, don't worry, I didn't until 2 days ago. So a big shout out to James who told me about them, one of my YouTube subscribers. So James, if you're watching, you know who you are. Thanks very much, mate. You just gave me the idea and I had a quick look and it's really intrigued me. So that's what today's all about. If you stay around to the end of the video, I'll tell you about a little mini adventure I've got planned for next week. As we head out along the old Somerset and Dorset Railway, as we approach the former Midford station, we pass the grounds of Midford Castle. Legend has it that that plot of land was won in a very lucky card game. This gives you an idea of the scenery. About 4.5 miles out of Bath, and it's absolutely delightful. Sun's behind me, as you can see by my long shadow. Look how dry and parched everything is. I'm about 7 or 8 miles into my ride now, so a bit about the route. Headed out of Bath towards Radstock on the Collier's Way. As I got to Stony Littleton, there's a T-junction there. Normally turn right there, go up the hill and then drop down into Radstock, but I turned left and came up through Falkland. I've just cut across this crossroads, the main road there, heading down to Hardington. So I'm going actually across the contour rather than round it. So literally the profile of this ride, the first part anyway, looks like a saw, you know, up and down, steep drop down in the Hardington, then out, dropping down to the outskirts of Frome, and the first of the thoughtful villages is Chantry. And a quick fess up, I've been and forgot my sunglasses. Just shows how experienced you are, how many years you've been riding. You always make mistakes because I started out early. I didn't need them first thing. I went to put them on and they're not there. And of course everything's bright already, dusty. I think once I get to Chantry, I'll head eastwards then to the next one, Telesford. I may be riding into the sun that way. Hopefully it would have risen a bit by then. Then as I turn north at Telesford up to the 3rd thankful village, which would be Woolly, I should be heading north-ish mostly, so hopefully the sun will be behind me. Yeah, big mistake, my fault. Oof. I'm still dropping up and down the contours. I've just come down that way. I'm in the lovely village of Mells now. It's a bit like a spaghetti junction there. The roads going over Colford, Radstock, Frome that way, Great Elm back to Wellow that way. I'm heading up this way. There's roads that way, oh, just all over the place. Lovely place though. Probably see I'm on the Caribou, the straight handlebar 26-inch wheel bike. It's a lot safer on these roads that are very gravelly, hence the reason bike changing during the week, why I think I forgot my sunglasses. Having said that, I did get them out last night, so I knew I'd need them, so yeah, just as I said, my own fault really. We're approaching the first of our destinations, Chantry. You may have seen from that aggregates lorry going by, we're up on East Mendip and there's lots of stone quarries around here, and very close to Chantry is Whatley, and I was on a ride there a number of years back. It's during the foot and mouth crisis 10-15 years ago. Me and my mate had been out for an afternoon ride. We stopped at his friend's stables, had a cup of tea with them. We were heading back through Whatley, down past the quarry where it sort of literally goes down and up. You have to get a really good run up to it going down, and you'll probably get up most of the other side. It looks quite forbidding. It's actually not as bad as it looks. Anyway, he had just filled up 2 water bottles at his friend's stables because it was very hot that day. He hit a bit of ballast on the ground, and I remember his rear water bottle jumped out and started rolling down the hill behind him. And I remember thinking, haha, you're going to have to stop and get off and come back and retrieve that if you want it. And it started sort of like rolling sideways in front of my path, and I thought, oh, I'm going to avoid it. And then at the last minute I realised I wasn't. I swerved to avoid it and hit it sort of side on, went over the handlebars, broke my collarbone, and long and short of it is they had to get an ambulance and take me to hospital. Didn't even go and plaster or anything. They just gave me a tetanus injection because I hit the road quite hard, and they just let it set. In fact, I seem to remember I went to work the next day. Just about to pass through the first of the 3 thankful villages I'm visiting today. After finding out about them through James, I did a quick bit of research. So I'll tell you a bit about it, but this is literally just first impressions, what I initially found on a search. Some of the villages actually have, under the boundary signs, say a thankful village, and some of them around here do. And talking about villages around here, the thankful villages, there were 53 across the UK apparently, where all the people, the young people who went off to the First World War, and that includes women as well, all returned safely. And Somerset has 9 of them. That's more than any other county in England and Wales. Unfortunately, Scotland and Ireland don't have any. Incredibly, 16 of the English thankful villages, and both of the Welsh ones, actually research shows, are doubly thankful villages. That means all of their young people who went off to fight in the Second World War also came back alive. That's quite remarkable, I think. Again, if you hang around to the end of the video, I'll tell you there's an irony concerned with where I live. But anyway, I want to pass through and see if there's any sort of reference to this being a thoughtful village. I'll probably head for the church. Chantry really is a very small village. I'm just leaving, there's a boundary, there's a sign there saying, I think that says 4 miles to Wells. It's very faded. So this really is a delightful village on a day like this, but it's worth remembering this is high up on the Mendip Ridge, East Mendip, so I imagine this is quite bleak in the winter. And there's nothing really commercial here. You see lots of signs that say the old chapel, the old schoolhouse, the old post office. I've just found the church and it says there's some Commonwealth war graves in there. Seems a community place, like summer picnic barbecue this coming Sunday. I'm going to go in and have a look, see if there's any sort of reference to this being a thoughtful village. Plus I just want to look around, it's lovely. Oh, this does look like it's perched up on a little hillside. Gosh, you see a really busy road going through there, just on the top of a lorry. You can hear the roar in the distance as well. Look at that gateway up to the church porch here. Look what I found. Chantry, a thankful village. And a village library. This really has got a community feel to it. Got lovely stonework, and then the wooden arch. Wow, hope it's open. Unfortunately not. What a shame. What a beautiful location. On the final day of my pillbox pilgrimage back in June, not the final day of the trip, just the final day of locating the pillboxes, I stopped at this church. I went in to try and charge my battery in my phone. Actually, I was looking for PowerPoint. I've just sat in the porch having a snack while I was waiting for my devices to charge inside, and a lady who, sort of like a volunteer who manages the church, came in and started arranging flowers. Then another lady came along. I sort of thought I ought to explain what I was doing, and it sort of said I'd made a donation, and she said to me, "Have you seen our graffiti?" And I thought, oh no, that sounds bad in a church. And it's actually medieval graffiti. Local fishermen had carved pictures of boats into the pillars. She was telling me that the church roof fell in a number of years ago, and it's going to cost about £150,000 to repair it, and they could actually lose their church. It would be condemned as being unsafe and unusable otherwise, and they put in for lottery grant because of this graffiti from 400 odd years ago, it actually made it a listed church, and it helped them get their lottery funding. So it just shows today's graffiti is tomorrow's lottery funding. I just love this place. This reminds me of my exploring during the lockdown. It sort of forced me just to explore locally, and it got me out the mindset of feeling I had to ride long distances. I'm actually loving this actually. Oh, you can just see the fluffy dog windsock microphone up in the top right hand corner. It's probably going to be your left actually thinking about it. Yeah, it reminded me of the lockdown because of the restrictions, it forced me to just ride locally, and it's really good. It got me out the mindset of thinking, oh, if I go out I've got to do a long ride, and it broke my series of Randonneur around the year rides, which means it's an award based on riding at least a 200 kilometre randonneur every month for a year, and I'd done it so many years on the trot, plus that I did several each year, and it broke that chain. And psychologically that was really good for me, because I got to the stage where it was almost felt like a chore. It felt like I almost had to do it, and it just got me back into touring, which has always been my first love actually, and just coming to visit places like this. And I don't know if you find that if you do long rides, quite often the 20-mile sort of radius of your own home feels like you just want to get beyond that and start exploring, and then when you come back it's just, oh, I now want to get home. And these days I'm just exploring this, this, I must have ridden past this so many times, I had just no idea about the heritage and the history of this village. Anyway, I'm going to be heading, if I turn the camera, I'm going to be heading that way towards Tellisford on the outskirts of Bath, southern Bath, before I then head north towards Bath Eastern. But instead of going into Bath back to my house, I'm going to head north slightly to Woolley, the third of the Thankful Villages. I'm just so chuffed I found that plaque. I was a bit disappointed when I came in, there wasn't a reference to it on the boundary sign, but yeah, just head to the church. You quite often can't go wrong, can you? Now on these really nice leafy lanes, I'm just crossing this river here actually. In fact, I'm paralleling it, I think. It's either the River Froome or the River Mells, and then heading up there. Look how lovely it is around here. This is a classic example. I just used a GPS mapping platform ride with GPS. So I literally just plotted 3 points, well 4 actually, my house, the 3 villages, and then getting back to my house, and it's just thrown up this. It just shows just if you have a vague little plan you can come up with some gems. That church was a real find actually. I'm still on quite a buzz from finding that actually. Just dropped down here and I'm passing Great Elm Pond. Lovely place, recreational area. Bet that's going to be busy later on with people swimming. That dog seems to be enjoying it. As I said, I just threw this ride together very quickly because I wanted to connect 3 or 4 places. I'm now heading north again, parallel to the route I took on the way out, undulating once again. This view gives you quite a good idea. I'm running parallel to the route I took out, and that was very undulating. That big hill over there dropping down into Hardington. If I zoom in, you'll actually see the road itself. It's like a ski slope coming down there. So I went south to Chantry, turned right, came along, and now I'm heading up parallel to the route I took out. This is quite undulating as well. Lovely morning though, so enjoying this. I've just crossed the A36 south of Bath, about halfway around my route, which was 45 miles, so I've done 25 miles. But as the crow flies, that was actually quite close to the way I went out. This gives you an idea of how parts things are. Look at that. Heading this way. I did mention irony actually about these villages. I mean, I think one of the things I really found fascinating was I've been through so many towns and villages where you see war memorials and the names of people who lost their lives. So to think of villages that didn't suffer that fate, I think it's quite remarkable really, and very thankful, hence the name Thankful. Ironically, my house is the only house in my street who's had an occupant who went to the First World War and didn't come back actually. He was 19 years old. His father and 6 of his brothers also served, so I'm assuming they survived. So that means a big family. He had there was at least 7 sons. Whether there was a daughter or not, I don't know. And in the very next street, literally about 50 yards away, a 30-year-old Lance Corporal got killed on the same day at the same battle. Well, I would suggest they were maybe in a PALS battalion, although when I did a little bit of research, the regiment he served in, the Somerset Light Infantry, didn't have any PALS battalions, so a bit of discrepancy there. I could be wrong, or maybe just there's no record of it, I just simply don't know. And what I can also say is, my local area, Oldfield Park, the postal code, 933 young men lost their lives in the First World War. That's quite a substantial number, isn't it? Try and put that in context. The electoral ward, which doesn't exactly mirror it, but gives you a rough idea, at the last census had 3,400 odd residents, but I don't know how accurate that is, because a lot of the houses are HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, so they're students, or they're now becoming Airbnbs, so I'm not quite sure how accurate that figure was. It gives you an idea though, because if you came from a large family, it would sort of almost be the equivalent of a house of multiple occupancy, a husband and wife and at least 7 sons, possibly a daughter, more. So yeah, that puts it into context. A big proportion of the young men didn't come home in the area that I live, and it would have accounted for about a third of the local population. Huge losses. Incidentally, if you want to find out the First World War history of your particular street, wherever you live in the world actually, there's a fantastic website where you can do that, so I'll drop a link to that below. The same with the Thankful Villages. I've only just started learning about them, so as usual I'll drop all the links below. And I'm now in the village of Tellisford, and look what I've just found right behind me. I think this might be the entrance up to the church. I'm going to go and have a look. Tellisford, a thankful village. Look at this lovely church gate lock. Hasp lock. And like a little pin, brass pin to go through it. Wow. It's going to go along here and have a look at the church. Here we are. Another one of these lovely locks. The hasp with the pin and the latch. Wow. Wow, what a beautiful place. Wonder if it's open. Oh, shade. So welcome. I love church porches, and I actually love just looking at all the notices. Actually, I quite often sit and have picnics and lunches here, and I've bivvied in them as well when I've been Audaxing, but I quite often have a good gander at the notice board. Not that it means anything to me, but it just gives you a sort of slight feel of the location. Is this one open? Oh yes it is, great. What a beautiful place. Visitor's book. There's a memorial there for the year 1736. Young lady who died aged 23 years. Lovely stained glass window. Another memorial plate. 1777. Daughter of the above died 1805. Lovely wooden roof again. Going to add my name to the visitor's book. The last entry was the 7th of this month, and it's the 12th today. Incidentally, on my last trip, when I went to that first church which held the funeral of Lawrence of Arabia, and he was buried just in the nearby cemetery. I pointed out to one of the windows that sort of had looked like it was a lightning crack painted on it. It was pointed out to me afterwards, and I actually read about it as well. They're quite famous windows. They've had a lot of artwork done on them. And also I noticed in there had been a bombing raid in 1940, and I thought afterwards, that's strange. The place is like miles from anywhere. Why would they have bombed that? And again, it just intrigued me enough to look it up on the internet, and it's thought that a German bomber that had lost its way just dumped some bombs on its way back to Germany, and they just happened to fall nearby. That's the best guess anyway. Well, that road just along there, literally about 30 yards, I've ridden past along that one direction or the other so many times, and I just never knew this was here. I know I keep saying about it, but it's amazing what's on your doorstep. Oh gosh, not sure if I'd want to wake up looking next to that. Oh, it's a welcome shade here. All I can hear is a plane in the very far distance, some sheep baaing in the near distance, and I just heard the toot of a train. I'm just loving this little explore so much. I just noticed as you come through the gate, there's a seat over there. I think that's definitely going to be a place for a picnic one of these days. Maybe on an autumn or winter day, I might bring a picnic up here and just sit, enjoy this place. I just emerged on Farleigh, Hungerford Hill, so I came in from that direction. I'm joining this fairly busy road for a few hundred yards before I turn left and start heading up that way. I'm just passing Farleigh Castle, although as English Heritage refer to it, Farleigh Hungerford Castle. I'll put a link to the description in this below, but as I understand it, there's some pretty nasty goings on happened in there back in the Dark Ages. Now dropped down into the lovely village of Freshford. It's very steep around here, and point of interest here, this particular spot I think it is, and that view, it was used in the 1950s Ealing comedy The Titfield Thunderbolt. I think it's fairly well known. The village of Monkton Combe had an old railway there, which a lot of the scenes were done there, especially the ones involving the station, but some of the outside shots were done here, looking up at that church. I'm heading down that way, outskirts of Bath, cross the A4 at Bath East, and then head up towards Woolley, the third of the Thankful Villages. I've overridden my route a little bit. I was supposed to be going up Winsley Hill, right at the top of that hill over there, and then dropping down over Conquest, so basically going up a steep hill, just to have to come back down a steep hill. So I've bottled out a little bit this morning. I'm just using the canal towpath along the Kennet and Avon Canal. It'll bring me to the same destination. Plus the whole point of today's early start was to get out before it got too hot. And it is starting to get quite hot. Oh, just doing this sharp left-hand bend. We're going to cross Dundas Aqueduct here. That's looking up at Claverton. So across here, sharp right, along a couple of miles, and I'll be getting off at Bathampton. This crosses the GWR railway and the River Avon. Just ridden a couple of miles along the Kennet and Avon Canal through the lovely Avon Valley, and I'm just about to leave it now at Bathampton. It was originally a village, but it's now part of the city of Bath. It's a district. So there's a lot of road noise in the distance, you may hear it. So two major roads are almost converging here, not quite actually, they run parallel through Bath. That one over there, the A36, is coming from Southampton to Bristol, and over there would be the A4 from London to Bristol, and they sort of almost meet at Bath, and then they run parallel through Bath towards Bristol. The A36 on that side is the Lower Bristol Road, that's south of the river, and the A4 would be the Upper Bristol Road, north of the river. and then they both terminate in Bristol. I'm heading that way. I'm going to join the A4 very briefly, cut across it, and then head north up to my third and final Thankful Village. You may just hear a train has tooted as well. There's quite a major rail junction here. It's where that Southampton to Bristol railway joins the Paddington to Bristol railway. Just after leaving the canal, and I'm taking this link road down to the A4, there is the railway junction I was talking about. So that's the two parallel lines, the main line heading to London, and then veering off to the right, that's the Southampton extension. After crossing the old A4, which had been bypassed by the new extension, the Bath Eastern bypass, I then hooked onto the old A46. This is the road out of Bath up to Lincoln, well, it's the Frostway actually. So that's the new section. This is the old bit that still exists, just peters out there. I'm going to be turning around here into Balebrook Valley. You can see the third village down, Woolly, 1 mile. That's my third Thankful Village. The reason that's so busy, not everybody's heading to Lincoln, it's the main link up to the motorway. That's mostly motorway traffic. This is absolutely lovely along here. So you're skirting along the edge of two hills. So up there would be that A46 heading up to the motorway, quite high up. Charmy down up there is quite well known for a Second World War airfield. And then we're snaking through here and then looking across. That's Lansdowne over there. That'd be like the race course up there. In fact, the race course had an airfield on it in the Second World War as well. So we're heading along here to Woolly, and then we're going to drop over, I think we're going to drop over and come back in, not right up there, we're going to come back in. You might see there's a road running along there that'll drop us into Larkhall on the outskirts of Bath. So Woolly's along here. Half a mile further on, we're going to turn left here, start doubling back. You can see how steep the road is up there. That really is a backbreaker up there, up past that farm, and then there's the lane running along there, but that's Woolly over there. I'm now at Woolly Church, deep in the valley, looking back where that house is up there with the brown roof. You can just sort of see the road running alongside it. There's a few cars. This is lovely here. Just come inside the church, haven't seen the plaque yet. I think there is one here actually. A couple of workmen outside, I might go and ask them actually. There's a Second World War memorial. And on the opposite side, the First World War equivalent. Right next to the church is this little memorial garden, and I nearly missed it. Here's the Thankful Village stone. I had to ask one of the locals actually, so as usual, when in doubt, ask. I'm now heading back into Bath, having found all three of the plaques I was looking for. This gives you quite a good idea of what I've just done. So that mound up there with the flattest top, that's Salisbury Hill. So I came in from the canal. The other side of that, you'll see just at the foot of it, there's some built up area. That's either Bathampton or Bath Eastern, they sort of merge into each other. The main road up the motorway is going up there. You can hear it but not really see it at this stage. The old one ran parallel to it, just a little bit lower into the hill, and then just as they converged I took that minor road down there past those farm buildings and along past that house there. You may just see the line of it, and then I got to that junction, dropped down, steep up into Woolly, turned left into Woolly, and then left off the main street through it down to the church. And I had a job finding that plaque, I have to say. I went in the church, couldn't find it, saw the memorial garden, didn't immediately find it there, thought I'd press on, asked a a few locals, and they sort of said it's either in the church or in the memorial garden. It's definitely one of those, but it sort of made sense. I went back, and when I looked a bit closer you could see it very overgrown. So that's it, mission accomplished. Really, I need to get back now. I've still got plenty of fluid, but it's getting very, very hot. I need to get in some shade. I did say at the beginning of this video, I'll tell you what I'm planning next week. So if you got this far, thanks very much for coming along. Hope you've enjoyed it. Next week I'm off to ride some more Roman roads. So recently I rode Margary's 45B. Now, just to explain what the Margary numbers were, he was an historian and an expert in his lifetime on cataloguing Roman roads, and the numbering system he designed and developed is still used this day by archaeologists and historians. Clearly the Romans didn't use that numbering system. Whether they used any sort of form of system, just nobody knows. So when you hear M45 or Margary's 45, that's what I'm referring to. So before I rode Margary's 45B from Old Sarum to Charteris on the Mendips, and then I continued to uphill because it is conjectured that it may go there. Well, this time I'm going back to Salisbury, Old Sarum, and I'm taking the first section of 45A, which runs from Old Sarum to Winchester. Then I'm joining another road there, 42A, up to Silchester, and that was where there was a big sort of road junction. A road came in from London, single track by the sound of it, just through woodland mostly, and then it fanned off there, went in many directions, and I'm going to take the section called the Portway. I think that's 4A, 4B, I'll tell you more next week, and that'll take me back down to Old Sarum. That road is also known as the Portway. Some of the bigger ones have been given names. Again, the Romans never called them that. So it's a big triangle. I'm going to be bivvying on it, and I may well camp near Old Sarum when I finish and go in and have a look the next day. I don't know. I've got a rough plan. I don't want to stick to it too rigidly. So that's what the next video is about. So in the meantime, look out for each other. Stay cool in this weather, and I'll see you soon.